This AI agent is one of the simplest and easiest agents that you can set up today, which you can also use daily. Because what it does is create hyper-personalized newsletters for you or your client in the topic that you want, all by researching the entirety of the internet through this new Perplexity node in n8n and giving you a daily or weekly update for breaking news in your field in a custom newsletter like this, formatted in an easy-to-read structure and without repeating any news topics that it has already sent to you through proper logging in Google Sheets. So by the end of this video, you learn how to set up this agent yourself and how to customize it within seconds to the topic that you are interested in. In fact, if you've never dabbled into AI agents or n8n before, this might just be one of the best starter workflows that you can do yourself because of its simplicity and utility. Let's begin. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Jay. We run RoboLabs, which is our agency arm, helping mostly brands and content businesses use AI in meaningful ways, and also the RoboNuggets community, where we have AI practitioner members across the globe, and where the mission is simple, is to make AI easy to learn for anyone who wants to. And to make this very easy, I've uploaded this template, as well as all the resources and prompts that you need to set this up in this page in our community. So you can check that out if you need a shortcut, but if you're a complete beginner, then don't worry, because I will be going through step by step how to set up this automation. Okay, let's do this. So what we'll be setting up today is very simple, because the News Robo AI agent, you can do it in basically 3 steps. First, we'll be setting up the AI agent, and then we'll test out how to send that to Gmail, and then finally log the news items that our agent already sent to us so that we don't repeat them the next time. So if we execute this workflow, just to demonstrate what our end-in-mind intention is, you can see that your AI agent is using Perplexity to research the internet, access the logs of your Google Sheet to make sure that there are no duplicates, send that to Gmail, and then put in the news items already sent to that Google Sheet. And then if we look at the email that it will send us every day, our end-in-mind is for the email to look like this, with properly formatted text plus emojis to help with readability, as well as a structure that's easy to follow. And you can customize this with whatever topic that you want, obviously. And also, if you want to add in more fields, I'll show you a simple way on how to edit your AI agent so that you can tweak this workflow with however that you wish. So let's start with step 1. And this tool that we are using is called n8n, which you can sign up for just in the link below here. And that will take you to n8n's homepage, where you can sign up for a free trial. And if in case you don't know what n8n is still, it's basically a no-code automation tool similar to Zapier or Make.com. But very evidently, it has shot up in popularity quite recently because of how easy it is to implement and construct your own AI agents using this tool. And it's also not that complex once you get started with it and when you have someone to guide you. So once you sign up and you're in your dashboard, just click on Create Workflow. Name this with whatever that you want. So for this one, let's name it as News Robo. And then for your very first step, just add in your trigger here, which you can find by typing in schedule trigger for this case. And a trigger in n8n is basically what triggers your automation. So there's a lot of potential triggers if you watch other videos in our platform, but for this one, it just triggers your agent on a set date. So you can see here, we can just leave this be. It's set to trigger at midnight every day. So if you click away, the next node that you want to set up is straight to the AI agent. So this is much simpler now with n8n's latest release. So once you click that, that will take you to this common design of working in n8n, where you can set up your nodes. And I always just show this if in case you are new to n8n, but whenever you're configuring a node in this tool, it's very simple. There's always just 3 windows. You have the input window at the left, where you will have all the data and information that's coming from previous nodes. And the specific node that you are configuring has parameters that you can edit here in this green area, so that you can instruct the node on what to do with that input. And then using all that configuration, it spits out an output in this red region that is then passed along to succeeding nodes. So if you go back to what we're setting up, it's basically the same design of working, and you can expand this as well. Now, you want to just rename this AI agent to make it clearer what it does. So let's just do that. And under this parameter section, there's essentially 2 areas that you need to concern yourself with. The first is the user prompt, which you can imagine as your message to ChatGPT. Whenever you prompt ChatGPT, that's the user prompt that you send. And instead of this default option, choose it as defined below. And for this prompt, we just want this to be a simple command, something like send me the newsletter for today. But obviously, if you just send that to ChatGPT, it's not really going to do anything. So the key behind all these AI agents is the system prompt that instructs this agent on what its role in life is. And to add that in, you can just click on this add option, click on system message, and you can see here that n8n has a default one that says you're a helpful assistant, which we need to edit and make more robust so that this agent knows exactly what it needs to do. And to make it easy here in our page, in our community, you can just copy this whole system prompt and paste that there. Now, if we expand this by clicking on this expand button, so now you can see this is a much more detailed system prompt, which if we go through this one by one, you'll see that it follows the agent framework. which we talked about just in our last video. So if you want to learn more about that, you can just watch that piece. But essentially, to make a good system prompt, you want to make sure that you have a clear ask. So for this one, we're asking the agent to send us a daily newsletter summarizing 3 impactful AI tool launches. And then we also want to provide it further guidance or guidelines, such as the role that we want it to assume, what's the output count that we expect, as well as the character limit, so that it doesn't just go off the rails with its output. So there's more guiding points here, which you can just read in your own time. But the key here is I actually didn't write this system prompt myself. I just had ChatGPT write it for me along with some guidance, which again, we covered in that last video. You can see if we scroll to the bottom here, we provided it some good examples and some bad examples. What we want it to provide to us generally is to provide a structure under a JSON format or JavaScript object notation, which whenever you see these brackets and braces, that's just a format that computers have been using to communicate to each other for quite a while now, which is why in no-code tools like n8n, that is also preferred. So you'll see that in a bit, why that is important. And then finally, we declared here under T, the tools that this AI agent will have access to, which we're going to set up in just a bit. But that we now have a well-crafted system prompt plus a defined user prompt. So when we execute this step, it will actually throw you an error first because of this chat model, which it told you it doesn't have yet. So if we go back, you can see that the chat model here has an asterisk, which means that it's required because the chat model is actually going to be the AI agent's brain in this case. So if we open that up, you'll see a lot of familiar names here. So you can select whichever one that you want. The simplest and most used is probably going to be OpenAI's chat model. So let's just use that one. And then if in case this is your first time doing this, you just need to connect your credentials to OpenAI. So just click on create new credential here. And what it's going to ask you is this API key, which to get that, you just need to head to this URL. And under this page, just create a new secret key, give it a name here and click on create, copy that in and paste it here. So if you're new to this, remember that your API key is going to be acting like a password in this case. So if you share your API key around, then they'll be able to access your account as well as your credits in that account. So just go ahead and click on save. And now under model, you can just choose the latest one. At the time of this recording, 4.1 would be the best. So we can just leave that be and click away. So now if we run this agent, it now gave us an output here, but you can see that it actually made up some news for us because it doesn't have access to the internet yet. Plus the structure of this output can be improved. So that's something that we need to resolve. So if you click away, we first want to provide this agent access to the internet. And the best way to do that at this point would be to use the Perplexity tool. So if you just click the plus under the tools icon here, find Perplexity, that will let you set up your agent's access to Perplexity. Which if you haven't used Perplexity before, if you head to perplexity.ai, it's essentially one of the best tools out there for you to give your agents access to the internet. So to set up this node, it's actually quite simple. There's a couple of models here that you can choose from. The one I suggest would be Sonar because that's the simplest one to work with. That's also the fastest for your use case. And then what's great about n8n is they made this really easy to set up. So under messages here, instead of you defining it yourself, just click on this sparkles icon. And what that will do is that the AI agent will fill up this text by itself automatically. Because if you imagine your AI agent as sort of like your intern, then Perplexity, which is one of the tools that it has access to, will be like the software that comes pre-installed with the laptop that you provide this intern. So now what you're saying to your intern, which is the agent in this case, is that for you to use this tool, I give you the freedom to communicate to it with whatever that you want. Which is why we're saying here that the text message we're sending to Perplexity as a tool will be automatically defined by the agent itself. We can also do that here under Simplify Output so that the agent will determine that choice on its own volition. And then finally, under options here, there are several other attributes here, but the most useful ones would be this search recency filter, because that allows you to search for the past month, let's say. But for this case, since we want more recent news, we'll just set it to search for the past week. There's another option here that I wanted to highlight too, which is search domain filter. So that allows you to limit your search to certain domains or URLs, such as reddit.com, for instance. But for our case, we won't be setting that up, just so our agent can explore the internet more generally. Okay, so if you execute this step and just provide a dummy text here, it will actually still fail if you don't have your credential properly set up here. So to do that, it's basically the same as OpenAI. Just click on create new credential here, and then it's going to ask you for your API key. And to get that, you can just head to this URL, and then you can create an API key, which you can just paste here. So now if you re-execute that step, that should work. If in case it doesn't, it's possible that you need to top up some credits to your Perplexity account, which you can just do here under API billing. And even just topping up $5 is usually enough and usually lasts you more than a month because these models are now becoming cheaper and cheaper. So that's good that we now have given our AI agent access to the internet. So if we go back to our AI agent, the next thing that we want to solve for is the fact that this output is unstructured, because right now it just spits out one item here. So it's going to be very difficult to summarize this data later on. So what you want to do is to toggle this require specific output format as on. And what that will do is add this extra subnode called an alpha output parser, which if you click that, you're given several options here. The one that we want is this structured output parser. And what this allows us to do is to just generate from a JSON example that we can provide here. So this is just a placeholder, so you can delete that. And here in our community page, you can just copy this whole piece and then paste that here. And if we expand that, you can see that it's essentially what we have under the notation portion of our system prompt before, where we are forcing the AI agent to provide us the subject line, as well as these news items that are cleanly laid out with a title, what the content is, why it matters, a source, and so on and so forth. So if we go back and we open our AI agent again and re-execute this step, you'll see that the output that it provided you is much cleaner. It has a subject line, it has these news articles which are all cleanly organized, and now we can use this to pass along to our succeeding nodes to make it much easier to read. But before we do that, if you recall in our final agent that we showed earlier, we have two more tools here. One is this Think tool as well as a Google Sheets tool. So what are those and why do we need them? So the first one is the Think tool. So if we just click on tool here and type in Think, this is actually one of the best tools that n8n has out of the box, because what it will do is invite your AI agent to do some thinking. So when you hear people talk about AI models having better performance when they reason, essentially what that means is whatever its first output is, it actually feeds that to itself so that it double checks whatever its output is in that first instance to further refine it to make sure that your instructions to this agent have been strictly followed. So that's just good practice to keep adding this Think tool to a lot of your AI agents. And you don't even need to set this up or change anything here because n8n already has a pretty good default Think tool description here to let your AI agent know what it's for. So you can just leave that be. And then finally, you want your Google Sheets tool, which you can just click and add here. And then we'll name this Google Sheets known as the log, because what we instructed that agent in the system prompt, if you read through it, is to check this Google Sheets log for any news items that we've already sent before, so that it will actually skip those and not have to repeat or duplicate whatever it has already sent you previously. Because if you don't do this, later on, you'll see that it may start to send you news that are already sent from previous days. So to connect n8n to your Google Sheets credential, just click on create new credential here, and they actually have a neat single sign-on here, which makes it super simple. And here under document is where you should find your Google Sheet template. So in my case, it will be this News Robo Google Sheet, which if you go to that link, you can see that it's a simple Google Sheet. You essentially have an ID here, a description of that topic, and the date by which it was sent. So you can create this template in your own time, or if you want a shortcut, you can just click on this Google Sheets template link, click on File, click on Make a Copy, and that will make a copy in your Google Drive. Once we have that document connected, you just want to select the sheet where your data is at. And then the only configuration you need here is under Options, add the option for the data location on sheet, and you want to specify the range. So this will just specify which part of your Google Sheet you want to get. And in this case, it will the range of the data in column B, which is basically going to contain all the topics here. So if you just type B column B and execute this step, you'll see that the response it gave you is just going to be every row in that column along with the topics that we have already covered from previously. So if you're setting this up for the first time, it's possible you don't have any topics yet. So that's completely okay too. But there, now your AI agent has been fully set up. So if we just arrange this similar to what we had in the initial workflow, just to make it a bit more tidy, where you have the tools here at the top, we can just re-execute this News Robo AI agent by clicking on this play icon. And now you'll see that it is accessing the internet using a bit of thinking, checking the logs if it has already covered the news articles that it is finding out on the web. And then finally using the structured output parser. So if we open that up, you now have a clean output here for news of the day on the AI space with proper structure, checking the Google Sheets if it has been sent before, and just overall having these elements which we can now pass on to the succeeding nodes. And so that is step one already done. And so the last nodes here are actually much simpler to set up because now you've done the grunt work of setting up your AI agent, which is the biggest part of this workflow anyway. So the next step is to send this to our Gmail account, which if you click on this plus icon, just search for Gmail. Very simple setup. Find the action code, send a message, connect it to your Gmail if you haven't done that yet via this single sign-on, create a new credential. Enter your email here under the to field. So we can use this, for example. And then under the subject, you just drag in your subject line. So because you already forced the AI agent to create this, it's much easier. And when you drag this in and shows it as green text, which basically means it's a dynamic value, which you can preview here. So this is actually what's going to be passed along. For the email type, we want it to remain as HTML. And under the message here, this is where you want to put in a specific HTML structure so that you can achieve this newsletter formatted type of email, which you can send. And to make this easy, you can just copy this whole piece in the community under the HTML message, change this to expression, and then paste that there. So now if we open this up, this actually looks complex because it is. But the good news is I also didn't write this myself. I just asked ChatGPT to write this for me in HTML format and just tested it until I got the look that I wanted. So if we go back, the last thing that you just want to add here as an option is this append n8n attribution option, and just toggle that off. Because if you keep that on, it will just say at the bottom that this message was sent by n8n, which you can also keep and try out if you want. But if we execute this step, you'll see that it says sent. And now we got that mail come through just now that's properly formatted as well. And if in case you want to edit this format, like increase the font size and whatnot, I suggest you don't do that manually. You can just copy this whole piece into ChatGPT and let it revise this HTML for you because it's much easier that way. So if we click away, that is now step 2 done. So if we go back to our end in my workflow, we just have this final piece remaining, which is just here for us to log the items into our Google Sheets for proper tracking. So to do that, just click on the plus icon here, search for the code node, and rename this as unbundle items. Because what we want to do here is coming from the news output that our AI agent provided us. There's 3 news items here, but in n8n's instance, it is currently set as 1 item. And we want to actually split that out so that we can add them in one by one in Google Sheets. So to make that easy, you can just copy this piece in the community or take a screenshot of it and put it into ChatGPT so that it can transcribe it for you and you can get it, and then paste it to this JavaScript section. And if you execute that step, that should unbundle those items for you into 3, where you get the subject line, title, content, etc. Now, if in case this did not work for you, it's possible that you didn't rename your AI agent as the News Robo AI agent, because this script in particular is actually referencing that node's name. So if you have it as, let's say, a capital N instead of a small n, that actually wouldn't work because it can't find the node that you were working with. So make sure that this is either named exactly as News Robo AI agent, or you can just change this as well. And this is in JavaScript. So if you want to understand what it does, you can just plug this into ChatGPT and it can explain to you line by line what it is for. But in today's age, even I didn't write this myself anymore. I just asked ChatGPT to give me a JavaScript code that will take these items and translate them into these 3 items, which we would need in order to proceed to our final node, which is going to be a Google Sheets node, but this time it will be an append row in sheet action. So we select that, change this to log to sheets is what it should do. Your credential should already be selected. You find your document, which in my case would be named as this news robo, find the sheet we are working on, sheet 1, and then it's going to fetch the columns there. If we just open our Google Sheet here on the right, you'll see that the topic is simply the title. So we can just drag that there. We have the content be the description. And then for the date sent, you can just type this in exactly. So 2 brackets followed by $now. And that will provide you today's date, which is just good for logging purposes. Now the ID here, what I like to do is to type in an Excel formula, which is equals row, open close parenthesis, -1. And what that will do, if you see here, that is exactly the Excel formula that we have, is just number this 1 by 1, which is just good so that we have a numerical ID here on the left. So if we execute this step, what it's going to do is to fill in these rows for us, like what it just did here. And now the next time that this automation runs, then it will have a reference of this list of topics that it already sent us. And now if you click away, that is basically your automation all done. So for you to make this active, just make sure to toggle that on. And now every day this AI agent will send you news articles in the niche of your choice. Now, in case you want to edit this so that it sends completely different topics or more news articles, the way I would approach that is to just copy the system prompt that we have here, go to ChatGPT, paste that whole thing there. And then if you scroll to the very top, you can just type a command here where you can ask ChatGPT to edit the system prompt for you. So a clean way to do this is to just dictate it, much easier. So for example, okay, ChatGPT, I want you to edit this system prompt so that it gives me news about the pet industry instead of AI tools. Keep the structure of the system prompt to be the same, change nothing else, but I just wanted to change topic in the niche of my choice. And you just go ahead and share that, and it will be providing you with that system prompt that instead of the AI tools, it's now giving me news about the pet industry, which is a neat way to customize it. Very easy and also stress-free. So there you go. You just set up your hyper-personalized newsletter AI agent, which is also one of the easiest agents that you can set up that you can use daily. But if in case you want a shortcut and you want to grab this template as well as all the resources behind it, check out the RoboNuggets community just in the link below if you haven't yet. We have more lessons and courses here in the classroom around the bleeding edge of what you can do with AI today. And also several members, including myself, regularly share paid opportunities here if in case you're interested for partnership collaborations and things like that. And we also host a lot of events where you can learn as well as get credits with some of our AI partners. In fact, just recently, we partnered with more than 500 AI and SaaS tools in the business to give almost $3 million in potential savings across these tools if you join the community in the annual plan. So if you want to join a community of AI practitioners to succeed with as we navigate this rapidly evolving space, then check out the community to see if it's for you, just in the link below. And if you learn something new, then do like and subscribe because it helps us a lot to give out more content on YouTube like this. That's it. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.